Good afternoon and welcome to the Virgin Media O2 5G webinar. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Ant Morse. I'm the Head of Digital Solutions at Virgin Media O2, and it's my role and my team's role to look at how digital solutions and new emerging technologies will change the way we both work and live in the future. I'm joined today by a number of our technical experts to share some details on 5G, the technologies and the solutions. We're going to look at what it is and how it's going to make those changes. But before we start, let me pass to them for quick introductions. Elizabeth.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Elizabeth Ponsford, and I lead 5G product development for our business customers. So that involves working very closely with our business customers and understanding the needs and how 5G can really help to enable new solutions to meet those needs.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Sam.
And then Sam.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam Salih. I lead the development of private networks within Virgin Media O2. So similarly, we'll also work with our customers to really help them understand how a private network can really help drive the transformation of their businesses into the future.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys, and appreciate you taking time to join us today and taking us through some detail here. So just if we start the presentation, details. So a little bit about kind of 5G. So we as an organisation obviously embrace this emerging technology, and as with the other networks in the UK, we're building our networks out as we speak. To do this, we're working with a number of different organisations in different sectors looking at how 5G is going to transform. And today we're really going to talk about that. We're going to separate the public access and the business access, kind of how does consumer and business differ in this topic. And in order to test some of these things, we're going to share more around some of the partnerships and collaborations that we have in place that provide test beds for these technologies as well. And ultimately, you know, we are rolling out at pace. So we are now live in over 180 towns and cities, and we're really targeting where that application, where those solutions are going to be used. So what are we going to cover today? Well, today we're going to dispel the myths and tell you exactly what 5G is. We're going to look at what it will deliver for businesses. What are the applications? What are the use cases that are really going to start to unfold and embrace this game-changing technology? And then we're going to look at how we start to drive the value for our own organisations. What can we do? What can we look at? And how can it benefit our organisations? So, first of all, let me pass to Elizabeth. If you could take us through what exactly is 5G.
Yeah, thank you, Ant. So I'm going to try and keep this at quite a simple level. 5G is really our latest generation of mobile network. And then we started to roll this out in 2019. As you'll have seen from the previous slide, it's now available in over 180 towns and cities in the UK. And the reason that was developed is twofold, really. Firstly, to create a new generation that will support the growing needs for mobile data in particular. When we launched 4G in 2013, it changed the way people started communicating, not just around people connecting with other people, but how people start connecting with things. And the demands of the network for data is growing by 40% year on year, so hugely stretching. 5G will start to address those huge capacity needs by creating that extra speed and capacity, but it will also start to deliver brand new capabilities to support entirely new use cases, which we haven't seen previously. And so in its very earliest phase, and let's think of this as a marathon rather than a sprint, we will start to see what we call enhanced mobile broadband, and this is about increased speed and capacity, about 8 to 10 times faster speeds, which will support those initial use cases. And then going forward in the coming years, we will see brand new capabilities starting, which are called ultra reliable, low latency communications. So this is about creating highly secure, resilient networks that with millisecond latency, which will support entirely new use cases, which we'll go on to discuss later. And then the next big capability and big change is what we call massive machine type communications. And this will enable for the first time the large scale deployment of IoT. So the ability to connect not just hundreds but thousands, if not tens of thousands of devices at the same time, and orchestrate that data together. And again, together with mobile edge computing, it's starting to support real-time processing and automation. So in particular, it's going to be really quite game-changing for businesses in particular.
Fantastic. And what does it mean for the public, Elizabeth?
Well, in its early phases, it's going to be around speed and capacity. So that, of course, is helping the public do all the things they enjoy around streaming video, accessing data, sharing experiences in the way that we do already today, but being able to make that a slicker, more enhanced experience. And then we'll also see some other public experiences around things like AR and VR with video and gaming. But I think where the public will benefit in particular is how they will get served better by businesses through greater efficiencies, more interactive and personalised customer experience that can be driven by these new capabilities.
Yeah, when we hear the hype, though, we're around virtual reality and augmented reality, and it's going to be really interesting to see some of those solutions come to fore. And Sam, if I could just bring you in, what does it mean for business?
So that's a great question, Anne. So for business, 5G really is about driving that transformation that they can see. So allowing them to adopt that kind of really full Industry 4.0 ecosystem, where they can begin to use the low latency, the increased bandwidth, the higher security that 5G can offer, both in the public networks and within private networks, to begin to move towards that automated manufacturing, automated operations, and deploy things in a wider scale IoT environment that can help them better serve the public and their customers all around.
Splendid. And just kind of picking on some of the terminology here, low latency, this is this ultra fast is the result there. Yeah, this is allowing machines to talk, is that right?
Absolutely. So what latency means is it's the time it takes for the signal, that data packet that a particular sensor will send, to go back to the core, understand what that means, and then for a response to come back and for an action to be made. So by really lowering that latency, what we can start to see is, speeds of less than 10 milliseconds at an extreme, where things are able to react in real time. So where you'll see the real benefits of low latency come through, for example, in manufacturing, is around the use of automated guided vehicles and robots, where by having that really low latency, they can react almost in real time to actions in their environments, rather than having that lag between needing to do something and being able to do that action.
Got it. So this is when we hear about surgeons doing operations from the other side of the world. It's those technologies that allow those things to happen. Yeah,
absolutely.
Makes sense. Let's just jump back to the slides, if we may. And Elizabeth, I just want to talk more about this enhanced mobile broadband. Give us more detail, please.
Yeah, and so this is what we'll start to see initially from 5G from a public perspective. And as I said before, this is about driving that greater capacity and speed offered by the first stage of 5G. And the areas where this will really become beneficial is any activities using high bandwidth. So, for example, AR, VR, high definition video, and all of the processing behind that. And so it's starting to support, in a business context, really immersive experiences that could support employees within their workforce, but also around how to serve new experiences to customers. So it might be using things like VR for training or augmented reality to help engineers in the field start visualizing how something might look, or be able to visualize where assets might be currently in a far more accurate way. The other area where we're seeing a lot of development and where 5G will support that, again, using large amounts of data, and I'll come on to discuss this later, is around the use of computer vision, video analytics and AI, which is being used an awful lot now, and we'll see a huge growth in that because of the high data processing needs of that. And then longer term, the use cases around drones are many. Drones are already being used widely within the UK in business for all different types of things, from monitor to surveillance to deliveries. But where 5G will start to really support that is being able to help with both the faster upload and download of information. So be able to stream things in real time and start automating things. So starting using AI. So when a drone is flying over a site, for example, it can start to look out for items and triggers to be able to pass information back in real time.
Super, thank you, Elizabeth. And Sam, coming back to you, if I may, the ultra, the low latency that you explained, just expand on that and its benefits in Industry 4.0.
Yeah, absolutely. And in particular, it's not just about low latency, it's about making that latency ultra reliable. And by doing so, businesses can then begin to rely on 5G and that reliable latency to really enable their operations. So one of the best examples is in manufacturing, where we are beginning to see, within the umbrella of a private network with edge compute attached, we're seeing a lot of manufacturers begin to use autonomous vehicles as forklifts to have people operating cranes while sitting in a nice, comfortable office on the ground, or robots themselves carrying out highly precise tasks, using and leveraging that low latency to be able to react in the way that they need to, but also benefiting that ultra reliability so that businesses know that when they need to make actions, they're not worrying about downtime, they're not worrying about does the network, is it operational? And one of the most interesting use cases that we will probably see in the public is around autonomous vehicles. So actually, they will really, really rely upon that low latency to ensure they don't crash into things, that they're able to react quickly if someone steps out, and that ultra reliability to make sure that they're always connected, they're always able to react, and those real-time alerts are really coming through for things that we would term as mission critical.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Another area that we hear a lot about is IoT, but I always kind of understood IoT as being, quite a lightweight technology. Where's 5G going to help IoT moving forward?
So I think what we'll see is it's not in the initial adoption of IoT that 5G will really help, because I think we're seeing that today, and we're seeing that serve really well over 4G. Where 5G will really help the explosion of IoT is enabling that mass proliferation of devices. So going from a couple of sensors, a couple of things transmitting data, to that real massive machine type communication, typically identified as the smart city, where you will have millions or tens of millions of sensors and IoT devices all sending up data, all receiving data, all communicating with each other. So when we do look at it within the frame of the smart city, whether it's things such as traffic control or those intelligent sort of traffic systems, or even through to things like just monitoring the environment, understanding when pollution is good or bad, and then taking actions to mitigate that. That's where we're really seeing 5G enable that kind of IoT, because 4G and other bearers simply don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to be able to enable this.
Makes a lot of sense, and I know we're seeing huge advances in IoT and a massive exponential growth in the number of applications and solutions that are coming to our now smart cities as well. So thank you, Sam, that's really useful. Now, I think the other point is a lot of this around robotics and autonomous vehicles, it feels very future focused. What can we actually do now with 5G?
Well, if we can do private networks now. So what we can do is, by leveraging a 5G private network, where actually you are doing what it says on the tin, you are building and deploying a private mobile network dedicated to your site. What that means is that you will have the core and the radio on premises, and by having that dedicated network that is secure, by leveraging that cellular grade security, it can be optimized to the use cases and the type of environment in which you operate. So we'll typically see these deployed in those environments where technologies such as Wi-Fi perhaps don't perform as well. So manufacturers, defense, logistics, warehousing, energy. And by having that private network, what you are able to do is to really bring forward those Industry 4 use cases and begin to deploy a lot of those today. A really great example is some of the work we're seeing come out of Germany at the moment, where We're actually involved in doing a work with Daimler around Factory 56. We've also seen others deploy this and generate huge savings and increases in their profitability as a result of the efficiencies and productivity gains that they've been able to achieve through that advanced deployment of that Industry 4 ecosystem. And this is what you see here. So going back to Liz's point, this is a journey. Nobody is able to deploy this all at once today. And what we will tend to do is it's understanding where those use cases sit and working towards a place where this type of vision is possible, where you have got a facility that leverages robots on an assembly line working autonomously, environmental sensors and predictive maintenance sensors on those robots, helping you understand proactively when faults or maintenance may be required, reducing the downtime that you will see, but also bringing all of the computer vision, the drones, the augmented reality use cases together to enable that kind of automated factory, that automated warehouse that has very much been lauded as the vision for many years. It is now possible to achieve by deploying that private network. And those are really the sort of the three things that we're seeing that 5G will enable. So whether it's driving those operational efficiencies and those new business models, where we've deployed these, and we'll come on to that later, we're actually seeing some of our customers understand and develop new ways of working because they've got this automation that they can take advantage of. Because many of the tasks that they thought had to be operated by a person can now be done by a machine. And those people can be redeployed to much higher value tasks. We can leverage that kind of low latency and the ability for the sensors to really empower and safeguard employees. So where you've got that health and safety monitoring using computer vision that we'll come to later, or simply having collision preventance on an AGV, you can really make sure that the work environment becomes even safer for your employees. And actually businesses can then use that where they are customer facing to drive far more personalized and interactive experiences to their customers, increasing the perception and the delivery of value that they can achieve to their customers, helping them really build on the relationships they already have today.
Fantastic, thank you, Sam. And it looks as though now we're getting to the point that some of the more sci-fi field technologies combined with 5G, we're starting to make a reality, and some exciting options, I'm sure, in the future. Elizabeth, if I could come back to you, please. We've looked at some very interesting glimpses of solutions there, but what can we actually expect to use these networks for today?
Well, as Sam has talked about, with a private network, we can really accelerate some of those new use cases. But outside of a private network, there's some new technologies that can be 5G enabled, but can actually be run over 4G today. And we're calling these 5G ready applications. So these are ones that will absolutely be enhanced by 5G, not least because of the high data requirements that they have, but can be run over alternative bandwidths for the meantime until it becomes more readily available. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of things that we've done with our own customers and that we have deployments of right now. And the first, Sam has mentioned it, I also touched on it earlier, and this is what we call computer vision or video analytics. And what's happening here is it's using AI to take live camera feeds from existing cameras within, for example, a station environment, as we've done here, or a retail store. And it starts to monitor and track behaviours, for example, people counting and the behaviours of people within that environment. So in the case of this station, it was starting to count footfall, look at points of congestion, and understand people's interaction with different services within the station. And that's giving the station itself or the rail operator some really actionable insights. Now, what we've also done in our own retail stores is deployed a very similar solution, which we call Spatial Insights, and we have as a live product now, to do exactly the same, to use that to understand how people within our O2 stores are moving around in a completely anonymized way. So you'll see the pictures of heat maps. It starts to give information about where customers and staff, and we're able to segment between the two, are moving around the store, accurately count footfall numbers, and how they interact with different displays, point of sale, even the conversion from walking by into coming into a store. So starting to get those really useful insights to help drive decision making, both in real time and retrospectively. So it can enable businesses to respond to things in real time, but also use those insights to plan for the future. And other ways that that's been deployed are in the example of health and safety as well. So to use the same computer vision to look out for triggers and anomalies that could be symptomatic of dangers, risks, injuries, and falls, for example. The other area that we have been focusing on is around the use of AR and VR. And I know we've touched on this briefly again. And if you move on to the next slide, if you don't mind, please. Again, this is using, I've touched on the use of computer vision and AI for health and safety, as you'll see here. So looking out for people movement around a construction site, the use of PPE, for example. And then we have the use of AR and VR. So one of the products we've also launched, which is called Remote Expert, is helping businesses empower and mobilize their workforces by giving them the information at their fingertips that they need to do their jobs accurately, independently, and compliantly. And in the case of this product, the technicians in the field would wear a headset with a small screen on it and camera. And by doing that, they can start following step-by-step instructions whilst being hands-free to do the job, and have information served to them in a really interactive way. If they run into any trouble, they can call on support from somebody based remotely who can visualize everything they can through the use of that camera and use AR to start annotating instructions on that screen. And lastly, it gives them the ability to capture evidence of everything they're doing, to be able to have almost that digital audit trail. So it really drives compliance through a full audit trail of work done. The other area where we've seen it used, and again, we did a proof of concept with Northumbrian Water Group here, who have many assets buried underground. And for this one, they use something called AR mapping. So being able to use augmented reality once again to be able to visualize critical valves which sit beneath the ground, and by being able to get a very accurate view of where those are, as well as being able to pull up information about those. So it might be the status of the valve, when it was last maintained, who by, and any other information that could help them do their job in a really efficient way. So these, all of these products are ones that are helping to drive productivity and efficiency, as well as protect and safeguard workers in their environments, which will ultimately lead to delivering a better customer experience through first-time fix rates. But they can all be delivered now over 4G, but will absolutely be enhanced in the future over 5G on a public network. But of course, at the same time, they can be delivered now on a private network. So they're flexible in that regard, but they will start really helping businesses drive those outcomes of workforce efficiency, productivity, and creating those better user experiences, whether for customers or staff.
Fantastic, Elizabeth. And I think it takes us from the sci-fi innovation, as I call it, down to actually the realistic, use cases of where we're going to start to see this benefit organisations, be it from health and safety or from just better efficiencies. And I know that there's some huge investments in AR technology across all the manufacturers and key vendors at the moment. And I think they're tipping this to be a large-scale technology on a consumer play and also in a business play. Interesting for me, this everything we've covered today and you guys have shared is really telling us that the opportunity of 5G is business. Probably the first time we've seen that in all our reiterations of 2G to 3G to 4G. This really feels like the opportunity for business. It really does. Thank you, Elizabeth. Sam, I think as a kind of our expert leading this and talking to our customers, tell us, what are we doing with customers currently?
We're doing an incredible amount of work, and I wish I could tell you about all the different stuff we're doing, but someone might shoot me. So we're doing a lot of work around private networks and deploying these in real live environments. We have gone outside of test labs, we've gone outside of POCs, and we're seeing companies really deploy this to enable that shift into the Industry 4 ecosystem. One of the greatest examples of it is one of the leading agricultural manufacturers that we're working with today. They've got a number of very large kind of square mile sites where they're looking to deploy many of the Industry 4 technologies that we've discussed today. But they're finding that Wi-Fi doesn't cut the mustard. It can't penetrate deeply into those highly metallic, highly complex environments, and it's unable to keep up with the amount of data and the bandwidth that they need, as well as the latency required. So we're deploying a private network with them. We successfully ran a proof of concept with them last year, and we've taken that through now where we're deploying fully across their sites. And we've worked with them to really help them understand the range of use cases that they can deploy. So we're looking not only at the augmented reality, the spatial insights, the health and safety monitoring, but we're looking at bringing on other use cases with them around predictive maintenance and digital twins, looking at their use of drones to conduct maintenance and inspection, but also how they can begin to automate what traditionally has been really manual, sort of human intensive processes. We've got a similar example going into the defense sector, a sector that's typically very, very security conscious, where the main attraction for them has been the ability to have all the equipment on site, to retain all that equipment on site, and to really have that high level of security a private network can bring, to enable them to again move from a paper-based operation where they use paper binders for a lot of things, to being something that's far more digital, far more autonomous, and uses those efficiency gains that they can get from the Industry 4 a lot more. So we're currently finishing off a proof of concept with this manufacturer. And again, we're looking at the use of asset tracking, asset monitoring, using that AR remote expert, and actually helping them free up their people away from workstations. So actually, when they are walking across sites and there are workflows or information that they need to see or to get, they're able to take that with them on the go, and they're not having to walk all the way back to a workstation that could be 10 minutes away just to see what their next tasks are. So these are things that we're doing today. And absolutely, some of the use cases that we will see emerge over the coming years don't even exist today. And I think this is one of those areas where 5G and private networks are really, really beneficial, in that they can continue to capture and grow as those use cases expand. And really, as we've said, have been built to enable business rather than consumers we've seen in some of the previous iterations of mobile technology.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I think, again, that's another great example of how that's changing this time. It really does feel as though the use cases will be in business first and foremost. Okay, well, thank you, Elizabeth, Sam. I appreciate you taking time joining us today, and to the audience as well for dialing in and talking to us. I guess the next steps, what do we do from here? So we'd really welcome you to come and talk to us about the potential opportunities you see. We'd be interested to discuss where you think there might be a use case. We have a number of test beds and incubators where we can actually test this technology. It's mutually beneficial. We're really interested to see what you feel of business and use cases in your industry. And it's helping us to not only just plan our future of 5G, but actually it will also probably dictate how the rollout of the coverage affects the UK as well. We do this in a number of ways. We can either have a virtual coffee in current climate, or we can join a virtual workshop where we can use some online tools to actually just kind of talk through an idea or a suggestion. And then, as mentioned, we can take, if we think we've got an idea that might have a use case or a potential benefit to your organisation, we can then look to where we can actually explore this in much more detail, either through proof of concept, or through some of our tech incubators and collaborations across industry as well. So you'll see our contact details on screen. Please grab a capture of these and feel free to reach out to any of us. and we'd be thrilled to talk more. Now, I guess we have 15 minutes left. We now go to Q&A. So thank you for the questions that have come through so far. I'll take these in order that I can see them on my screen here. So the first question has come in, which is around how can we trial the digital twin technology? I think that's probably one for Elizabeth. You shared more on your slide there about how that worked. How can customers have a look at that in more detail?
Well, this is one that we have been testing with one of our customers, and we've done a proof of concept. We'd love to hear from anybody who is also interested in doing that. We don't have a live product yet, but it's getting customer insights from businesses like yourselves that can help us develop this and validate what those use cases are and the best product for that. So please get in touch with myself or Sam. As Sam's mentioned, the work that's being done on private networks makes it a great environment to be able to test these brand new solutions on pure 5G on a private network, or we can test this on either 4G or 5G if you're in a 5G area. So please come and talk to us, and we can understand your requirements.
Fantastic. Thanks, Elizabeth. Let's have a look what else we've got. There's a question here. Interested to hear a review between public 5G and private 5G in an industrial environment. I think we've covered a little of that, but Sam, any further thoughts there?
That's a great question, and I think where the division happens is in terms of when do you want to do something. Public 5G is unlikely to be in those kind of rural or semi-rural areas where we're seeing a lot of those large manufacturing plants. But also private 5G gives you a number of benefits over public 5G when looking to deploy today. By having that kind of dedicated private network onto your site, that network is dedicated and optimized to you and your use cases and your operations and environment. Whereas when you're looking at using public 5G, you are effectively competing with everybody else for use of that bandwidth and for use of the spectrum that you wouldn't have to do for private networks. You also have the increased benefit of security and keeping that data on site. So where we use private networks, we deploy on a different public identifier so that people on the national networks like myself, if we go into an area where there is a private network, our devices wouldn't see that network exists. Our devices wouldn't be able to connect to it. So you have that benefit of the increased security, the better latency, and the optimization which you can deliver in private 5G that you cannot deliver in the same way with public 5G. One of the deployments that we've done, we were able to give a customer a 5G network in an area that we're still using kind of 3G, 4G because of its remote location. So you can, again, really leapfrog with private 5G in a way that you'd have to wait for the public networks to be available otherwise.
That's a good question, good answer, and leads us into the next question, actually, which is, we'd be interested to know how the timeline for large cities like Birmingham would get full, strong coverage in all locations on 5G. I'm probably well placed from my interest in the topic to answer this one. So as we kind of mentioned, and it's been clear throughout, the use case really is business. As we roll this out to areas that are priority, such as city and high density population areas, and the actual success and rollout of this will be very much geared around how businesses embrace it. So for an example, if we are to look at automated and 5G enabled superstores, in actually providing the connectivity of a private network to a supermarket, as an example, we would also then be kind of halfway to actually delivering coverage for public and consumer use. So the rollout will continue. We invest millions of pounds every day in our network, and 5G is a priority, and we're well ahead of our ambition. But actually, that could be accelerated faster. Very difficult to give dates and times, I'm afraid, but if business embrace this in the way it's expected, we could roll out much quicker. But again, to that point, really feels as though it's going to be a business-led operation. And again, the same actually then applies for factory locations, and not just around dense population city centres, but actually we could end up in more rural locations because of automated factories, as an example as well. Let's have a look. I think you mentioned around security as well, Sam. Another question on security is, obviously 5G security is paramount. Can you outline more about this, and what are the steps to increase security for a 5G networked business?
Sure, that's a great question. So I'll answer it within the frame of a private network. And we can go into technical discussions later if you'd like. Within the frame of a private network, you're not only utilizing the increased security standard that you get through 5G, so the 3GPP and the security that you've got, but because the core, the radio, and all the devices are on your premises, you're able to create that kind of enclosed environment that others will find it very difficult to get into. As I say, we use a different public identifier for private networks specifically to aid that security. So only devices or people who have been pre-approved can operate on the private network. And we can even have it so that those cannot operate out of the private network. In terms of end device security, which is probably one of the key areas as well, we have a number of different tools and processes that we can use to really ramp that up. And actually, that's one of the reasons that the defence industry is engaging with us so well, is because they see the potential of this to be utilised within their environments, which, for obvious reasons, need to be incredibly secure. If you've got any specific questions around kind of the technical details, if you get in touch, I'm happy to go into depth with those.
Fantastic, thanks, Sam. And a huge topic, and I think there are lots of further conversations to have. Another question was around the piece I just mentioned around connectivity in hard to reach areas. The question is, how do you see the functionality supporting the end of analog lines, e.g. lift lines in tower blocks? And that is a great question. I think as with all evolutions and reiterations of the mobile networks, we do see that 5G will be a considerable game-changing technology. I think for all the reasons we've just looked at, it's far more than the previous changes, which have been about delivering faster video or more content. Now it really is around kind of not just Industry 4.0, but also around the innovation and possibilities in consumer applications. The result of that, for my opinion, is that as a result of the demand requirement, this is likely to be rolled out across a number of different frequencies across all the networks. There'll be low bandwidth, there'll be high bandwidth, giving different uses for different services for different usages. But it could, in effect, spell the end of kind of lots of fixed line services as we know them today. So we are tipping this to replace the fixed line service. Obviously, what I will stress though is there'll be a huge network infrastructure at the back of that, the UK WAN existing to provide the fibre requirements to those masts. But the last mile, the last section of this is highly likely to be radio, and the use cases will go on. Let's just have a quick look at the questions. We're very conscious of time. We've got a few minutes left. Let's see if we can squeeze another question in. Do you guarantee connectivity remains for real-time safety critical alerts in safety scenarios? So who wants to take that one? If a network's compromised, what happens? Good question.
So there's a number of things you can do to reduce the likelihood of that happening. So you can build in geo resilience. You can build in a number of different redundancies to prevent that. No system is infallible, but what you can do is reduce the risk. And certainly where we have had those requirements from customers to have ultra reliability or kind of have those backups in place, we can certainly work to kind of to create that solution that gives you that surety that you need. But no system is infallible.
Sure, and absolutely. I think it does, it's a timely reminder that we run an awful lot of our business operations on our mobile devices, and we're beginning to be very reliant on these, and I think that will only grow as we move forward and progress. Let's just have a quick look. We've got 2 minutes left. We'll just grab one more question if we can. Here's a great question. Which is the best technology, Wi-Fi 6 or 5G? Any takers on that?
5G, obviously.
I guess I can start with this, and they're going to suit different scenarios. So I think where 5G public networks in particular are going to come into their own is where it's for publicly deployed operations. So mobile workforces, companies such as utilities or infrastructure companies who cannot provide a nationwide Wi-Fi coverage because they're working outdoors, for example, construction. There's lots of examples like that. So 5G gives that very secure, and Sam's talked about the security of a private network. We have carrier grade security for the public network as well. So it provides that security, and in the future, all of the additional ultra low latency characteristics, but it will happen outdoors. So you're not having to be connected to one specific location to be able to use that, providing coverage is there. So that's what I'd add to it. Sam, I don't know if you have anything to add to that from a private network perspective.
I completely agree with that, and I think a lot of people say Wi-Fi versus 5G, and I think that's a bit of a red herring. They are entirely complementary, but they'll be used in different scenarios. So if we take a manufacturer for an example, actually, would you use Wi-Fi 6 to try and enable the automation of their operations? You probably wouldn't. But actually, would you use it in some of their more clean environments? Would you use it in some of their more office-based environments? Absolutely. And that's one of the real benefits of 5G, is that it is a very broad-based umbrella that can use other technologies as part of it. So when you build, for example, a private network, you can utilize a whole range of different connectivity technologies, including Wi-Fi 6. So we've certainly viewed it as complementary, not a competitor.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sam. I'm conscious we're out of time. We do have a couple more questions that we haven't got through, but we will update you on those just as soon as possible. But thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Sam. Great updates there on what it is and what people are doing with it and how they're using it. We'd like to thank you for your time today in taking time out of your day to join us. And again, just to remind you of the offer, we'd love to talk on this. As I say, you are helping us with very valuable insight as to what the use cases are, what services our customers need, not just at a network level, but also at a solution level as well. So thank you again. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you on one of our webinars in the near future. Thank you.